So welcome folks to yet another episode of The Rumble. I've been having all kinds of guests on the show, people from businessmen to economists to literatures, but now for the first time I'm having an actual musician. She is a daughter of an illustrious father. Father M.S. Gopalakrishnan doesn't need any introduction, but I'll still do it. He's a very famous violin player, classical player. And naturally, when you are a daughter of such a well-known player, you tend to take up the same thing, and that's exactly what she did. So she also took up the violin as she grew up, and she adopted a strange name too, M. Narmadha. And now, why I say strange, because M stands for her city where she grew up. So Madras Narmadha, that's what her name is. Of course, she's named after a great river. So was that part of the calculation when your father named you, that he had an affection for that river?
My grandfather was taking his bath in the holy Narmadha river at Bharuch, and he was staying with Pandit Omkar Nath Thakur in Gujarat.
Okay.
So he thought that perhaps this would be a linking factor between north and south.
Yeah, I think now we are in the process of connecting all the rivers, so maybe this is exactly what he might have thought. Okay, so let me start from a somewhat different area, which is most musicians, especially classical musicians from the Carnatic tradition, stick only to that. But I know that you have gone into, and your father too played a lot of Hindustani music. What was that connection? How did that happen?
My grandfather Parur Sundaram Iyer, who named this tradition as Parur with his allegiance to Kerala, the beautiful village near Kaladi, Vadakam Parur. So it later came to be known as Parur. He traveled to North India, places like Mumbai. He spent 12 years with Pandit Vishnu Digambar Paluskar, the doyen of Hindustani music, and taught violin there. And then he met great scholars like Pandit Omkar Nath Thakur in Banaras and V. N. Patwardhan. So taking in the essential ingredients and essentials of Hindustani music, and also learning the techniques of various instruments, the sitar, dilruba, sarod.
Oh, so he was multifaceted when it came to instrumentation, and all kinds of things.
Everything. So he has adapted these techniques to the violin.
Did you meet him in your lifetime? A lot of people don't know their grandparents.
मेरे सौभाग्य है. I studied under him for the first 14 years.
Oh, right. So when did he pass away?
1974, December 12.
So relatively recent, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
So you have enough exposure to your grandfather.
Yes.
And of course to your father.
Yes.
Okay. So when you started this thing, I know the violin is probably one of the most difficult classical instruments. It doesn't have any frets, it doesn't have any signboards, guards. You got to play almost by instinct. So how long this is a silly question, but how long does it take before you can even begin to understand how this works?
There are two parts. One is the love and the passion for the instrument, that I want to become a violinist.
Okay.
And the second part is the benign will to practice. Okay. Combining these two factors, I think with extraordinary grit and willpower, we can expect a good violinist to take about minimum 10 years. 10
years. So this is like an athlete who gets up every morning and runs 10 miles. So what is the equivalent of the athlete's 10 miles for you? What would you be doing every day?
We would be doing about equivalent Raas.
Okay. So how many hours?
I started with 8 hours of practice, and now I'm doing only 4 hours.
You still feel the need for it?
Actually, practice takes us towards perfection, and also, at some point of that time, the musician becomes very creative. It starts germinating. So I get new ideas when I practice.
Oh, that's good. So, but there's also a tradition where classical music is considered somewhat rigid, in the sense that you work within a framework and you can't really go out of that. Then it stops being classical. Then it becomes, innovative or whatever. So, do you find in your in these two streams, Carnatic and Hindustani, that there is freedom, but yet there's discipline?
See, for a performer who's stuck to the classical regime, he has two options. Either to be faithful to the tradition or to play to the gallery. What my grandfather did was, he revolutionized the whole thing. He gave the audience what he wanted
to give.
And then he made the audience like that stuff, because he gave such new pioneering things. They came back to him and said, this is tradition, do this for us.
Okay. Oh, so he made what he made that into tradition also.
Yes.
So it did look like something revolutionary coming. Almost slipped it in without them knowing.
Because we adapted the global fingering techniques. We have the Western bowing, We have the sitar fingering techniques. We have the Eastern presentations in the tanams. So it's like an ocean of, research, and just not research, because they say 1 ounce of practice is tons of theory. So he made them practical and showed the scope of this brilliant instrument. Violin is just not an instrument, it can sing.
Well, they say it's the closest to the human voice, the violin. It can best mimic of the human voice is the violin. So when we come back in the second part, we'll ask a little more about it, because it's as good as a mystery for 99% of us people. We have no idea except to recognize and say, hey, that's a violin. But we'll find something more when we come back.